This is what happens when you don't understand or care about the characters or the concepts that you're making a series about. Hey, what's up, nerd fam? This is your boy Gashawn. I want to welcome you to Enter the Nerd. Today we talk about Loki season 1, maybe like just the entire season / season finale review, whatever. We're gonna talk about whatever this was. Okay, now going back to like my first video, I already knew this was going to be very strange because they've already treated the Asgardians, specifically Loki, very weird. He has been a true villain. They've always had him on the road to possibly getting some type of redemption. So I knew based on the mistreatment of him and some of his Asgardian counterparts that this was going to be odd. And going into the series, I was absolutely correct because of how it made him act, the whole buddy cop thing that was going on, and whatever. If this was going to be something unique, maybe I might have been able to find some entertainment somehow. But I knew, as someone who knew the source material, it was going to be a very hard watch for me because I'm always going to be comparing it to what I know this character to be, which is not a problem because anyone who is watching something that's adapted off of something that they are familiar with will do that, as long as we're clear there. That's why my thought process was that way. The thing is, if you're going to divert from source material, at least go to something that's good and consistent, which is something they are absolutely not here from the start all the way to the finish, right? Whether we talk about power scaling, right, which obviously has Loki getting slapped by a baton when he's outside of the TVA and getting knocked out, and then again later on when he's outside the TVA being able to move buildings and stuff with his mind because he is truly powerful. He is truly a sorcerer, and even showing another counterpart of his being truly powerful, like you would have seen in the comics, and him barely able to really do much, even though he's been Loki for a couple of thousand years as well, right? Which doesn't make any sense. So they completely trashed that. Also to the concepts of the TVA, which I think is the biggest pain point. The TVA all the way to the finale, what they were doing with that, just hit the mic, pardon me, with what they were doing with the final guy, he who remains, how he fits into everything. So the TVA, the Time Variant Authority, right? They're supposed to be monitoring the sacred timeline. The problem is these variants aren't coming from different timelines, they're coming from different universes. So they're saying we have to protect the timeline, but a timeline is singular, right? So it means that different things that are happening on the timeline. But if it's multiverse, we're talking about multiple timelines that are running parallel to each other. So if something happens in this timeline or this universe, it's not affecting this one unless someone is jumping over into this one and adversely affecting it. I would get it if we were always talking about that, but we're not. There are literally variants who just did things in their universe which created a nexus event somehow to affect another universe. It doesn't make much sense. If they're not traveling outside the universe, it was a really bad concept. Because literally, it's one thing, once again, if you have a being going from one universe to another, but you have a being just sitting there in their universe minding their business, it's not affecting a different one. It's not. That concept doesn't make any sense. And let's just go back to the timeline part. In Avengers Endgame, they already established that even if you were to go to the past and change something, it wouldn't change the timeline or the time point where they came from. It would just create a different divergent timeline, just creating a different branch. So even then, it wouldn't be affecting that timeline. It would just be creating another one. I guess they'd have to destroy that. But still, they're not even talking about that. Which then leads to the conclusion of this episode, or this season, which talks about, as we know, Kang, or is probably just Nathaniel Richards. If you don't know, Nathaniel Richards is literally a descendant of Reed Richards, yes, from Fantastic Four. So, might be a spoiler for what's happening later. If you didn't already know, if you didn't read, but that's pretty much what's going to happen here. And you might notice there's a bit of a difference between what he looks like in the comics and what it looks like on screen. But, you know, that's par for the course about what's happening right now anyway in Marvel. Or just in comics adaptations anyway. But the whole point is he's saying that he was monitoring this timeline or these multiple universes because him and other variants of himself were first coming together, and they started warring and had this whole multiversal war. And he destroyed all the rest of them, and now he manipulated everything up until now to get Loki and Sylvie, who was supposed to be another Loki, but really she's a composite character between Enchantress, the second Enchantress, and whatever they decide to do, and the female Loki, which is technically, in the comics, the actual Loki, but reincarnated in Lady Sif's body. Yes, a lot of stuff. They had to jump over a lot of hoops to even make this happen, but whatever. It doesn't make any sense. What he's doing doesn't make any sense, because he just said that, well, he said two things at once. At one point, when Sylvie's trying to attack him in season 6, he goes, "Oh, I already know what you're going to do." As if someone handed him the script to the future and told him everything was happening. But then he tells him, "I manipulated everything." So he wasn't handed the script, he wrote it. So he's saying, yes, I manipulated everything to get you here because I want a successor. I'm tired of doing this. So that means everything that we've watched up until now, all these movies, was manipulated by him just so he can get them there. Also, going back to the time variance, right? They said that when you're jumping from universe to universe, that's when they like to jump in and say, "Hey, what's going on here?" Endgame was them doing that, right? It was them messing with time. They never appeared. They never appeared. And they're like, and obviously you wonder how come that didn't happen. Remember, even Loki brought up, "But the Avengers did this, why aren't they here?" They had no answer for it. So you would think that right there, they probably would have started thinking something was up. They didn't. So these guys they're messing with time, they're policing time, but they're complete idiots. That's really what it is. They're completely incompetent idiots, because even the most common sensical things, like pulling a little girl from sitting there from doing nothing. But a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, maybe he just, Kang or whatever was manipulating them off the side." Not that much, because all it took was Sylvie giving this girl a vision, which could have been fake, by the way, right? Because she had powers, it could have been fake for her to go, "Oh, we gotta tear this up from the inside." Same thing with Mobius. It just took them a suggestion or just someone telling them that this is not real for them to go, "All right, it isn't real." Okay. Also, because it's this guy at the end, they had this whole story building up with the Lokis. There's some reason these Lokis are so important. Because at first it was like, "Well, we need your help taking down a variant, Sylvie." And you realize Sylvie isn't really the bad person. It's the time variance. And you would think that whatever season 1's gonna wrap up with is going to make their character arcs come to completion somehow. But it doesn't. It's just, okay, this whole thing was just to serve as a jumping point for the rest of the MCU, which wouldn't be bad if it actually made the rest of this season make any sense and mean anything. And it doesn't. What it does is it makes this not mean anything, and the fact that they've eliminated free will, it means everything we've watched before this kind of happened for nothing too. So all these Avengers movies, everything happened because Kang is looking in this crystal ball and manipulates all these pieces just to make sure that Loki and Sylvie can end up there. And then at some point he's like, "I have no idea what's about to happen," and she just wants to kill him for some reason, even though she knows, even though she's meant to revenge, she's not an idiot. She's supposed to be smarter than Loki at some point too, and she just has to kill him. And somehow his death is supposed to lead to a whole bunch of other variants coming, which also doesn't make any sense because he is one person in a particular universe. How would it affect any of the other universes? The concept doesn't make any sense. The comics handle this very well. Also, the criminal mischaracterization of Kang. This is not what Kang does. Kang does interfere in timelines, but it's usually for personal gain. Like, sometimes even to stop himself from becoming something. Like, he will go in there. It's the whole Iron Lad thing, because he didn't want to become that, right? But he didn't do that there was a multiversal war, I gotta fight a whole bunch of people, and no, you're mischaracterizing him. And it made him kind of like, this friendly, goofy, but like relatable. Like, that's not who he is either. Because they want, I don't understand. And how did Loki end up in this other universe where she supposedly sent him back to the universe where she knows she wouldn't have known to send him here? So she sent him, either was she was just sending him to some random place, she had no idea. And then Kang ends up being there, so she sent him in the universe where Kang is already head of the TVA. So in every universe, he creates a TVA. In every universe, he thinks exactly the same. Because even if you read comics or whatever like that, in multiverses, some things can be similar, but it won't be exactly the same. So why is it that he's constantly always going to create a TVA? Why? It doesn't make any sense. But I get it. They're trying to use this to set up the bigger MCU. Like the big, he's going to be a villain. He's going to appear in Ant-Man 3. He's probably going to be the big bad for all this stuff. But then it's like, make it make sense. If you're going to do something like this, make it make sense. And stop trampling all over the source material. Because that's what they keep doing. And I get it. A lot of people don't know it. And I understand. For y'all don't know, it's not your fault. But for us that do, and the ones that they're making this, and just keep on making things consistently inconsistent. What was this? This literally didn't mean anything. Literally the only thing that meant something was what happened at the end of this. Because now everything else is moot. Except for what happens at the end. Literally. There was no point. Nothing. And this keeps happening. These type of things keep happening in these series. Like, I don't know where they're going. They set up these high expectations. Because I'm going to say this. This Loki series could have been really cool if they were really linking it. They were going back to like the Scarlet Witch thing. If maybe a Doctor Strange appearance was happening. Like they were, talking about sorcery and stuff like that. And maybe going into the Loki's backstory and talking about Asgard. But they didn't do that. They would just made first this weird buddy cop thing. And then they had him fall in love with himself. Even though it's not really himself. And then you introduce King the Conqueror. And then you have this whole authority that doesn't even understand the thing they're guarding and trying to enforce. It's really dumb. It's dumb. And if you really watch it. Like if you're just watching with your eyes open like this and just watching images movie, you might not get it. But if you're actually listening to the things they're saying and the concepts they're spewing and understanding why from scene to scene, these things don't make much sense, especially when they go against something that they've even already talked about in another movie that makes some of this not make any sense, you'll understand that this is a giant plot hole. And I don't get it. Let me know what you think. Did you think that this was like an amazing series and it was infallible? Did you enjoy some of it? Were there parts that I'll say there's some things that made me chuckle that gave me glimmers of hope? But they did some real criminal things to some of these characters here, and even like the whole like kid Loki making that like a variance. Like there's so many cool stories that Loki is a part of that this series effectively eliminates by just making them little bits and pieces of stuff. This is why I hate that Marvel likes to do this. And it makes me worried for the future of the MCU, which I'm going to make a video about that presently. So let me know what you think about it. I'll let you know what I think. Let's have a cool discussion, whether we agree or not. Let's talk, and don't forget to enter the nerd.